Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January the 8th, 2025 meeting of Council. I hope everyone's had a pleasant Christmas and a New Year. Let's begin with a moment of reflection. Thank you. This, item 3, confirmation of the agenda.
The council adopts the agenda for the meeting of January 8th, 2025.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber and Councillor Chapman. Seeing no changes or additions. All those in favor? Is carried. Thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? There are no delegations or public meetings. Consent agenda, a number of items. We have a resolution.
That the January 8th, 2025 consent agenda be received for information, and that the included recommendations within the staff reports be adopted, and that council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on December 4th, 2024.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Wislak and Councillor Barber. Welcome, Councillor Barber.
This could be confusing. Your counselor could be.
Oh, that's true. So anyone want to pick up any of these items? Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted a question to staff through you about item 6.1. Are the duties and responsibilities of tenant security remaining the same? And when is our contract with them up for renewal?
To speak to the question, I believe the duties are remaining the same. This is due to a change in just the contractor's employees. And I believe the contract is up for renewal at the end of this year. I could be wrong about that, though.
Okay. Anyone else? Other questions? All those in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. Item 7, action item 7.1, Manager of Parks and Recreation Survey results. We have a resolution.
That report Recreation 01-25 entitled Recreation Survey Results be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Desrosiers, Councillor Rahi. Susie, you're on.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. So I'm here tonight to share findings of a recent recreation survey posed to residents this past fall. The survey was designed following budget survey findings suggesting a strong interest in recreation programming and to further inform the implementation of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, knowing community engagement would be a key piece to that implementation. So the survey was posted to the town website from September 16th to October 21st and generated 230 responses. In addition to the online survey, accessible and hard copies were also available. One outlier in the results that we received was that our staff made a presentation to the grade 12 leadership class at East Elgin Secondary School to seek their input directly, which garnered great input and engagement. So high-level findings from the report are in line with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, that in parks, trails, and playgrounds are the most popular facilities and activities among respondents. It was found that residents identify the benefits of parks and recreation and also have high expectations of programs and services that are offered. Although slightly higher responses were received prioritizing child and youth sports programs residents expressed an interest in a cross-section of programming offered for all ages and interests. In addition, a variety of organized, drop-in, and general interest programming is wanted in the community. One of the questions was asking about how the information gets to people, which is important to us. I was noted social media was reported to be the preferred form of advertising. However, we're well aware people read our great paper, and the need for print media and alternative means of advertising is still needed and valued in the community. It was also preferred that the method of registration is online through our website. However, as with advertising, we recognize that alternative registration, in-person registration and whatnot is also required, which hopefully we'll see an uptick in these responses and satisfaction with improved recreation software. So the 10 questions that we posed and tried to make it not too lengthy so we could promote engagement. 2 were open-ended questions seeking direct input from respondents, which garnered 215 responses with regard to preferred recreation programming, which is summarized on page 62, I think, of the agenda package, just listing a variety of programming people like to see or would like to see. And again, 167 responses from those with comments or suggestions to help shape the vision of recreation in Aylmer. So the desire to have recreation facilities improved was noted, and emerging themes for the future of recreation in Aylmer included, as you'll see on your screen here, engaging older adults as volunteers in the community, creating social opportunities for youth, focusing on accessibility, prioritizing advertising, making sure programs are either low cost, no cost, free, or affordable, senior center programming, trying to eliminate transportation barriers, and then offering both active and social recreation programs. So as the Parks and Rec Master Plan implementation continues, community input is important so that programs and services represent what the community truly wants and to promote an active and engaged Aylmer. Staff are grateful for the folks who took the time to provide the feedback, and we look very forward to providing additional recreation programming to the community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that report. Council, any comments or questions, please? Councilors Rosie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Susie, just out of pure curiosity, and I'm probably going to be testing your memory on this, but I'm curious to know what the feedback specifically from the students was.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Desrosiers. We took a slightly different approach with the students. We knew that we wanted to, sometimes the static surveys, online surveys don't reach our audience that we really want to get the interest from. So we did a democracy activity in the leadership class. So we had all of the questions posed, and then students were able to go and indicate their interest levels in different, throughout the different questions. And then we had sort of an open forum, a parking lot, where students could write their suggestions for different programming. And there were some really neat sort of out-of-the-box ideas that came out of that. And some programs that were, and suggestions that we're following up on now, so we can actually put some of their ideas into play. Fell in line with some other ideas that we'd gathered through just the standard online survey, but it was really neat speaking directly to the students, and then also sharing a little bit about what municipal recreation was and engaging them in our parks and programming too. So, yeah, thank you for that question.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you. To Susie, now that you have this survey as a tool in your toolbox, will you be able to use the results of this to eventually format some kind of a plan to implement some of the suggestions that are outlined in the survey?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. I think this is the point of the community engagement, is to make sure we know what the community wants and offer and deliver those programming that they ask for. So through the master plan implementation report I brought before council in June, community engagement was indicated to be a big piece of that and be very important. So kind of following the budget survey and the Parks and Rec survey, really wanting to hear what the community's involved in. And there's some really great ideas that came out of this that we'll absolutely be following up on. Thank you.
Anyone else? Susie, do you see a need for a timeline?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's appropriate to make sure we're surveying the community in line with presenting updates on the master plan to council so that the community is engaged and council is also updated on progress. As trends shift in recreation or there's different demographic changes in our community, I think it's important that this stays relevant and it's not a one and done.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, all those in favor of the motion? Is carried, thank you. Item 7.2, Director of Legislative Services, request for exemption on the alcohol policy resolution.
That report clerk 02-25 be received for information, and that council approve the exemption to the municipal alcohol policy for the purpose of permitting a beer tent at the Elmer Community Festival to be held on June 21st, 2025 in Steen Park.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber, Councilor Rosier. When you're doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval for an exemption to the municipal alcohol policy. This particular event is expected to include activities for all ages with a designated beer garden in the Steen Park Ball Diamond area. So while the map prohibits alcohol in the parks, primarily due to challenges with underage drinking and crowd control, the policy does permit council to grant exemptions. Council will remember last year we passed an update to the municipal alcohol policy early in the summer. We did note in that report that we could grant exemptions to the policy if a new proposal was brought forward. So staff are recommending this exemption, provided that all requirements under the municipal alcohol policy are met, including the fencing and security measures. The exemption would specifically just be to the location of the event. The organizers have already submitted an event application, special event application, and have been collaborating with staff to develop site plans, traffic plans, and emergency and security plans for the event. So we are recommending approval to the exemption.
Council? No questions or comments? Very well. All those in favor of the motion is carried. Thank you. 7.3, Chief Administrative Office, Dog Park Review. Resolution.
That report CAO 60-24 respecting a dog park review be received for information, and that the town further assess the potential demand for a dog park during the 2026 budget survey.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Oslak, Councilor Rahi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report advances the direction of the Finance Committee to examine a potential dog park. Some background: when this item was last considered in 2009, it was in response to a citizen group advancing the issue. At that time, the only lands identified by the town were the industrial commercial lands off of Progress Drive. So those were the only town lands that were considered. Subsequently, the citizen group approached the Fair Board, and the fairgrounds were also examined as part of it. This is as part of this report, we tried to cast a much broader net than that initial review and include a lot more properties to try to consider. There's a very rough cost estimate here of $100,000. Previously, the citizen group simply wanted to place a snow fence up in a location, which really isn't a dog park. So in developing the estimate, staff wanted to consider what common amenities or provisions exist at most new dog parks. We also didn't want to underestimate the capital cost and have council pursue this and encounter larger cost or unhappy surprises. So essentially, we're trying to avoid over-promising and under-delivering here. If council does want to proceed to look further into this, it would make sense to identify a couple of locations that you would prefer to review. This would allow us to undertake a Class B cost estimate and have a further discussion on what components council wants or can do without at a dog park. The recommendation of this report is to include it in the 2026 budget survey to get more input from the community. If we could narrow down council's preferred locations, it would help us also assess issues like neighborhood opposition or opposition from existing park users to locations, which is very common with dog parks. It is an issue that there are clearly two sides of where it's discussed. The 2026 budget survey may also help assess a dog park against other investments in our parks and recreation system. The 2023 Parks and Recreation Master Plan had a dog park identified as a long-term item, as a long-term priority. So if we proceed with such a project before the other ones, it would be reprioritization over some short and medium-term recommendations in the plan. To things like investment in park equipment and trails. Council may want to consider this project with other capital projects for parks to best allocate where you're going to put your limited funds for 2026. So that's kind of what we would recommend, is taking some time, developing some other capital projects for the park, and seeing what the public wants in terms of a location, seeing what capital projects are really the public's priority. And that would allow us to make a more informed decision. The last budget survey, there were comments about this, but there were also a lot more comments about the trail and other recreation amenities. So I think from a staff's perspective, we would say we haven't reached the point where we can say there's 5 or 6 comments on the budget survey and that we should reprioritize the strategic planning around parks and recreation. Staff do see value in further developing and researching this and believing that we should identify some potential sites and start talking about that tonight. There are several concerns obviously related to dog parks: cleanliness, maintenance, noise, enforcement, dog attacks, transmissible diseases or infections for the dogs. So although it's just at the initial stages of looking at it, identifying where the community would tolerate that type of utilization and parking and other issues that we need to work out would really help us define the cost and really help bring this project further along, rather than just be kind of an intangible thing that it is right now, where we don't really have an idea of where this would go and what it would entail. So narrowing it down would assist with that. Certainly that's my overview, and I'll try my best to answer any questions, Council.
Thank you. Just for the clarification of council, you mentioned Class B as opposed to the estimate you gave now. Can you elaborate on what the Class B assessment would be?
Yeah, so we'd probably engage GM Blue Plan to come up with a somewhat of a design of what it is, and we'd also bring that, if there's 2 locations, we would look at a couple of them, and we would just have estimates on fencing cost, if we're going to put in a parking lot, what the asphalt would be, if we're going to put in lighting, or if it's just going to be dustered on. But that would also help refine what this dog park is and what amenities it is. It's a reality that I've talked to people that operate dog parks in other municipalities around this issue. It's a reality that they do generate a lot of complaints, so we want to make sure that if we're developing something, we're avoiding creating something that would have issues, and it will also help us kind of flesh that out in advance for council and for the public.
Okay, thank you. Council. Councilor Oslach.
I'll read it. I do believe that postponing till 2026 is a bad idea. We want to move forward with these recommendations as soon as possible. And I do agree, community consultation is a must. Why wait? Since 2009, people wanted a dog park. I put forward at least 3 times in the previous councils for a dog park in the last 12 years. It's like building a library in the town of Elmer for the past 16 or 20 years. Procrastination does not solve the problem. And furthermore, we could phase it in over a 2-year period. This would be a great asset for the town of Elmer and to our park system.
Thank you. Councillor Rahi.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess a question to Andy. Does it have to go through GM Blue plan for engineering, or what, like, it's a fence that holds in dogs. I understand the concept of having their input, but it just seems like that could be a cost savings or a cost that doesn't need to exist. It depends on what degree of public consultation council wants to do. It would likely help the public to have some picture, at least, of what it might look like in terms of a design. And it might help us to refine the overall cost of it. We can certainly make, it depends on how council wants to do this. If council wants to establish a dog park with a porta potty, a concrete pad, lighting, a parking lot, it is what we commonly see, but there are issues, you know, certainly some of the locations in our existing parks are part of a floodplain. So we want to make sure that the public's aware of that, because if we're going to put a dog park in a floodplain and we're not going to put down wood chip base, we're going to get, you know, 20 complaints a year about muddy dogs. So these things are, dog parks are ongoing operations. There will likely be a 10 grand a year operation fee in addition to the capital. So it is something that I wouldn't want council to rush into without knowing what exactly is going in place, I'd say. But we could certainly, if you wanted us just to use in-house and you came up with a definitive look or design that you wanted, then we could proceed.
Follow up?
Go ahead.
Or I guess it's a comment. I think like a dog park is I think becoming necessary. There's a ton of dog owners, me included, in Elmer. I talked to the fair board, and a couple hundred people a week walk their dogs or have their dogs running at the fair board, so at the fairgrounds. So I think there is a need for it, but the problem is juggling where the little bit of money that we have to spend on stuff goes, and there is so much stuff in the park system that needs it. Spending 100 grand putting a fence up and a porta potty seems pretty crazy. I don't think there needs to be engineering or like, I don't know, you can fence cattle pretty cheap. It's essentially the same thing in the end, but I think what we need to do is come up with a location and get, you know, figure out the actual cost of it and then maybe go from there. But I think we need to know where it's gonna go right now, and the problem with our parks is they flood, so you're not gonna spend 30 grand on a fence and have ice take it out.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. I personally would like to have the ability to take our little guy out so that he could run farther than 40 feet, which is 20 feet down one leash, and then the other side, and then he has to put the brakes on. But there's a couple of things that are wrong with going ahead and building it this year. First of all, we don't have the money. What are you going to take it from? But I think we should begin the process of seeing if we can make a reasonable project doable. Use the KISS method. On CTV a couple of months ago, a community in London, I'll call it a neighborhood dog park. It couldn't have been more than an acre, but the community got together on a corner piece of land that was donated by the developer of the subdivision, and they put up a 4-foot chain link fence around this area, and that was their community dog park. Pretty basic, but it does the trick. But you don't have off-street parking, you don't have washrooms, you don't have lighting, which obviously is expensive. So If we can make it work, if we can make it work in a reasonable manner, and it's supported by the people that they're actually going to use, and not have a lot of negativity on the other side, some people don't want a dog park, including dog owners that may not want their dogs with other dogs. So it has to work for a good number of people. But move forward in baby steps. See if it's practical. My thoughts.
Councillor Rosie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With its vast acreage and existing trail accessibility and remote characteristics, I believe that the new Rotary Park land off Willow Run would be an ideal location for a dog project. To verify the project cost outlined within the report, I did ask staff to break down the expenses. And after reviewing the information provided, I believe many of the costs associated, similar to what Member Rahi said, are unnecessary. Additionally, similar to the partnership with Kettle Creek Conservation Authority, would it be advantageous to explore a partnership with Catfish Creek Conservation Authority, given that Rotary Park lies within their jurisdiction? I agree that further community consultation is essential. However, I do not believe it should be postponed until 2026, such as Member Oslach and or Deputy Mayor Barber has said. If the community genuinely supports this project, ongoing engagement is crucial to refine the project's costing and to enable fundraising efforts to commence as early as possible for project success. We may find that there is significant support for this project, and maybe there'll be funding independently. We won't know that without pursuing any consultations. So I would like to move to amend the motion to read that Report CAO 60-24 respecting dog park review be received for information, and that the town be directed to bring back a report to council outlining options for public consultation with regard to planning for a Town of Elmer dog park.
That's a motion that you're making at this point.
Yes.
You did mention before, I missed a comment on your motion, you did mention that Rotary Park was one of your suggestions to put the dog park in, right? I guess what staff is looking for right here, if you're asking for a staff, report from staff, is a couple of locations so that they can bring two to us to confer with. Is that, would you like to add that to your?
Well, I don't have a second location. Maybe someone else from this council would have a suggestion, but I think Rotary Park for sure, I think there's 10 acres there, so allocating an acre would be, ideal. So,
Can I hold your motion in abeyance until we come up with a second one?
Yeah,
And
sure.
then we'll come back to your
Yes.
motion. Suggestion for another place besides Rotary Park, Councillor Oslach.
Well, I propose Rotary Park several times in the past. I like Rotary Park.
We
It's
have
all
that.
other the way. It's never used. It's it's ideal.
Okay. Another, Councillor Rahi?
The most ideal spot, because there's a lot of stuff already existing, would be just north of the skate park, whatever you want to call it. There's about an acre square in there, but it's
Yes.
close to people's houses. But there's, a pavilion, there's already parking. If you can utilize that, that really does cut down the cost. And you're kind of out of that flood zone. There's a swill that runs through there. There used to be a park, like playground stuff when I was a kid. It's good and gone, but you're out of that good flood zone in there. But you are tight into the neighbors, and dogs barking is definitely not ideal. But
Okay, Deputy Mayor Barber, you had another?
Just a comment to the last couple of comments. It sounds like we're defining where it's going to go, and I think if we're going to let staff prepare a report and maybe make a suggestion, that it should be open-ended. Let's go into this with our eyes open, and maybe there's a better solution out there somewhere that nobody's thought of yet. Just a thought.
That's okay. All right, Councillor Oslach.
Alexander Drive Park. It sounds like a good location.
Alexander Park. That's off of Alexander Drive, you mean?
Yeah.
Councillor Rosie.
just a comment to that, as a resident of that area, it's Centennial Park, first of all. And right now, if you actually read our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, that area specifically is in an extreme deficit of park equipment, like play equipment. So part of that Park and Rec master plan stated that there needed to be accessible play equipment within a 5-kilometer radius of development residential areas. And that area, if you looked at that map with all those radiuses, it's lacking. So I think a dog park there would be good, but I also think a playground there would be better. And there is significant development happening there right now. So you're going to have a dog park and like right next door a house. I just think that's too close for comfort, like especially if we're looking for community consultation. Like Rotary, for example, is down and below. The houses are up top. It's near a creek. It really isn't impeding with any residential community members. So we could explore it, but I just think that is going to be a common theme we are going to hear from residents if we suggest that space.
Councillor Barber, and then Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few thoughts, but I'm just going to leave it up. I support having a staff report. I do have some concerns about how much money it potentially could cost in a year that we don't have a lot of extra. But I would support a staff report looking into this, and also support staff looking into where the best location would be, because I'm no expert on where a dog park should be, so I don't want to sit here and make a recommendation, because I don't know. Really, that's not my expertise. So, but I would trust staff to maybe look into this and come up with an expert opinion on where the best location, or a couple primary locations for a dog park in Elmer, and then we could make a decision off that.
Okay. Councillor Chapman.
Through you, Your Worship. I agree with William that we don't know where would be the best location. My concern with Rotary Park, and it's a concern without putting a dog park there, is there's no parking. There's no parking for Rotary Park. So people would either park in Optimus Park and cross over Elm Street, or they would be parking on the residential street in the new Willow Run subdivision. So that would be my concern with Rotary Park.
Okay. Okay, I think, well, I'll hear one more, and then I'll ask staff.
Just a comment, I guess, through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand what everyone's saying. It's just I think they've already done the exercise and tried to find places, and there isn't really that many options, so that's why I think I'm trying to kind of suggest where. I agree with Rotary Park because of the parking. There's going to be, it's a beautiful spot for it because it's down in there, it's out of the way, but there's going to be a huge cost associated to bringing something down and having a parking lot. One more, just because it's parked. Ideally, someone privately would donate something. That'd be fantastic. But there is Lions Park as well. There's, almost an acre just south of the pond that's there. There's also parking, washrooms, and there's bush all the way around it. So that would be, could be a potential option as well. But I think that we need to find a spot. We need to figure out what it's going to cost and go from there. So.
So I'm hearing from council that we want to leave it up to staff to suggest where they go, so rather than just naming a couple of them. And also hearing that people want it done soon, not wait till 2026. So I'm going to ask staff if you can, your report, or suggest a couple of places or 2 or 3 places.
Yeah, and I think that's important, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's important to test the will of residents nearby as well, to narrow it down to a few places to see what areas are more feasible before we go out to engagement.
And you could come back with this report within a couple of months.
Yeah, we definitely, probably not the next council, but probably February.
So Councilor Rosier suggested a resolution, which would be an amendment to this resolution, correct? Could you read your resolution again, please?
Yes, and if through you, Mr. Mayor, the clerk may want to amend this based off the discussion, but I'll still read it out. So the first part's still the same, that we are receiving this report for information, and then the last part is that the town be directed to bring back a report to council outlining options for public consultation with regard to planning for a Town of Elmer dog park. So that he might want to change a bit.
Okay, so that is an amendment to the resolution that's on the floor. So we have a seconder to that amendment, Councilor Oslach. Any further discussion on that? Very well, so we'll vote on the amendment first. Did you have a question, Councilor Rosier?
Yeah, can the clerk read it back just to ensure, like, because he may have edited it, and I just want.
Yes, if through the mayor to Councillor DeRosier, could you confirm, would you like it to read regarding consultation on a dog park or regarding a location for a dog park? Or just regarding
Can
a
you say
dog
on
park?
location for future consultation? Like, can we keep it all together?
Sure.
So,
Yep. And I'll read the motion back. The motion would read that report CAO 60-24 respecting dog park review be received for information, and that the town staff be directed to bring back a report to council regarding a location and future consultation on a dog park. And this is an amending motion.
Yes, an amendment, okay. All right, so further comment on that motion? Actually, it's an amendment to the motion. Okay, so we vote on the amendment first, and if it passes, then we'll vote on the full motion. All right. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? That is carried. And so now we have a motion on the full motion is,
That report CAO 60-24 respecting a dog park review be received for information, and that the town be directed to bring back a report to council regarding locations for a dog park and future consultation on a dog park.
mover and seconder, Councillor Desrosiers and Councillor Oslach. All those in favor? That is carried. Was there any opposed to that? No. Okay. Item 7.4, CAO on Housing Enabling Water Systems Resolution.
That report CAO 02-25 respecting Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund agreement be received as information.
Seconder, Councillor Desrosiers, Deputy Mayor Barber. And, all right.
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, this is to help us secure the $4.5 million in grant funding for the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund for the lagoon optimization. Special thanks to Rob and the whole grants team for securing another huge win for the town.
Very good. So if we defeat this motion, we don't get the money. Is that right?
Don't defeat it.
Don't defeat it. All right. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor Barber?
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick comment, again, thanking everyone that worked together to make it happen. $4.5 million is certainly appreciated.
Councillor Desrosiers.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echoing those comments from Deputy Mayor Barber, but as well as thanking the provincial government for selecting us. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.5, Public Works Coordinator, Dealing with Information Services, Resolution.
That report Operations 01-25 entitled Service Request Portal be received as information.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Rahi and Councillor Chapman. And I believe Leah is doing this, right? Yeah.
Michelle's going to start. Yep. Thank you, Mayor Cookett. Let me just bring that up. So first, I will speak to the development and the versions and data collected from the service request form, and then Leah will follow up with explaining how the operations department assigns and completes requests. The report before you this evening provides an update on the development process of the online service request form and provides insight submissions captured between October 2023 and October 2024. As background, the service request form became available online in late 2022, and the form was built with the goal of streamlining the process of collecting information and directing requests to the appropriate department to respond. Since its launch, the form has been improved by generating automated response to the submitters, as well as a link that allows them to check the status of the request, and automated follow-up emails when requests are closed. There are a few key data points I'd like to highlight from the analysis section of the report, starting with the service request by type. So this shows the areas of town services that can be addressed in the form, And of these 7 categories, operations are directly responsible for 5 to 6 of them, and Parks and Recreation are responsible for 2 to 3. And of course, crossover can happen where both departments need to work together collaboratively to address a request. And this chart shows that the top 3 service request areas are water, wastewater, sewer, and flooding, trees, and roads and sidewalks. The next section details the average time to complete a task, and Leah is going to speak about this, so we'll just come back to this point. 222 requests were received between October 17, 2023 and October 17, 2024. And we can see that May, September, and August represent the months with the highest number of requests received. We kind of chalk this up to nicer weather and some different waste collection events that happen annually in the town of Elmer. And next we have our task details. So it breaks down all 222 requests so that you can get an idea of the things people are asking within those categories. So you can see that roads and sidewalks has quite varied types of requests, and same with water, wastewater, sewer, and flooding. They can be complex and varied as well. And the final piece of data we looked at were the locations with the highest number of requests, and it's not really a surprise that John Street and Talbot Street receive our most requests since they're probably the highest traffic areas in Elmer. The customer service team frequently submits service requests on behalf of the public when we receive them by phone or in person, by email, or when a council member or another town staff member receives them. We've optimized the form for staff to use by implementing an internal emergency section where after hours and response information can be accessed. And we've also made changes to the garbage and recycling category to redirect missed collection requests directly to the contractor. And these 2 improvements ensure that staff can access correct information and that public requests are going to the appropriate responder. And finally, to improve response times, the customer service team plans to create some communication guides where possible to enable faster flow of information. So if we're speaking to someone on the phone, we might be able to give them some information that could solve the issue without having to submit a request, or something that can kind of help them out. And the Parks and Recreation and Operations teams are both in the process of incorporating mobile technology. So Parks and Rec piloted an iPad last summer, which was useful to receive tasks while on the go, so they don't have to return to the yard or to the building. They can receive them remotely and check them off once they're complete. And we're currently developing internal forms for the operations team, so the service requests could potentially go directly to an operator to be completed while they're out on the road. Just maximizing limiting the amount of time it takes to respond. So with that, I'll hand it over to Leah to complete the report.
Thank you. The average time to complete a service request task varies on the request type. The completion time is from when the requester submits the service request to the time that the action has been completed and we close the task in Laserfiche. The average time to complete a task is 10.1 days. As you can see from that table there, that some of them are able to be completed very quickly. Myself and the manager of operations, Connor, are the staff members who receive the submitted service request for the Public Works Department. The data shows that typically we are able to claim a task within 2.1 days of receiving it. This time can vary due to weekends, holidays, and demands of other job duties, as this is in addition to our regular job responsibilities. As for the process of the service request once submitted, I try to complete any tasks that can be handled administratively or requests that may not require operator involvement. Tasks that can be completed in-house are handled by the operators or our manager of operations, and they typically have a quicker turnaround time. Factors that can lead to longer task completion include receiving requests outside of business hours, waiting to complete requests until seasonally appropriate, waiting for work to be referred to and completed by a contractor, and ensuring staff have time to close out finished requests once the request has been fulfilled. In conclusion, this report serves to demonstrate the importance of monitoring the town's service and response levels on a continual basis. This ensures the effectiveness of our communication tools. Overall, town staff deal with a variety of service requests and are diligent in providing responses within a reasonable time frame. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Michelle and Leah. Very, very thorough report. A lot of different types of requests right there. Thank you. Rob, did you have?
Yeah, just further to how the report, this is sort of the counselor's way to monitor performance on our staff, and our staff became aware once the report was drafted that it was coming to council, because we do want to report on to you how well we're doing. I think we're doing very well. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've ever gotten a call that says I called and nobody ever called me back. It's very slim. So I know we're giving good service, but nobody's got any data to prove that. The first thing I heard back from our staff was, well, I get a lot of phone calls and I just simply complete it. And I said, well, this is in its infancy. You need to also record those as well, because we need to sort of track how we're performing, and that should be reported to council. So that's what this is doing. As Michelle has said, it's in the works, so it's been tweaked a number of times along the way, and because I'm sure our service requests are much higher than what it's actually being logged out there. And the first place I sort of drilled down on was the 24 days to close, but I had Michelle and Leah and Connor, we all kind of drilled down into that data. And to give you an idea on some of those ones that take 24 days to close, let's say we had a snowplow operator right now that was up over the curb, let's say, and did some sod damage. If somebody calls in today for sod repair, obviously that's not open. We can't even buy sod right now until the spring. So that's one of those long other ones. But some of those columns are the ones that we drilled down in to say, okay, well, how are we doing? How are we not doing? So the goal is to have sort of this regular presentation to council, so council has data on exactly how the staff are performing, where we might need some help, and where we're looking good. But so far, if I read into this, you can see we're like 90% of the stuff is getting closed very quickly. And that's from when they get the task to when it's actually completed. So it's a pretty good story, or a pretty good report, in my opinion, for council.
And I agree. Thank you, Rob. All right. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you. To whoever would like to answer it, when a complaint comes in, what is the process? Who does it flow through? And does somebody sign it off at the end? You touched on it on one of the reports.
If you like, I can answer that. So I guess it depends how it comes in. The public can access the form themselves and they can submit the request. It flows through kind of a chart. So depending on the category that they select, if they select water and wastewater, it's getting assigned directly to our manager of operations and our public works coordinator. If it's EECC, it's going directly to our staff over there. Parks and Rec, same thing. It would go to our manager of Parks and Rec or our lead hand, and they pick it up from there. However, if it is a phone call or someone at the desk coming into town hall, customer service staff will fill out the form, usually on their behalf, just to make things easier for the person that's calling or that's visiting us. And it's the same thing. Once we select the category, it triggers kind of a team that's associated with that. So it immediately gets assigned to that team.
So there's already a defined process and a flow chart.
Correct.
How to process it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
whatever you put into the form, it has certain outputs that will follow kind of in a branch.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Council, anyone else? Councilors Rosie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's nice to have the analytics to substantiate kind of what's going on throughout the community. But being accessible to the community, I think other council members will probably acknowledge that a lot of the feedback comes directly from the members of the community, which is a good thing because my experience is that with regards to our roads crew and our ground staff is it's been just positive. Like I haven't had any negative comments. So while the analytics support that, I feel like the feedback that I receive from members of the community kind of means more to me. So when they say how happy they are and when they approach me and tell me, oh, I had this problem and, oh, they were on it so quickly and they did this and like, that means a lot to me. So I appreciate the analytics, but also it's nice to hear that feedback from the community. One question I did have, and I feel like Rob might have mentioned it or kind of touched on it, was while the online service portal is valuable, how is the town addressing service requests from residents that don't have access to online? And I think he kind of touched on it when they call that staff is, like, can we get some background on that perhaps?
I can go for that one as well. So it's kind of accessible in a variety of ways. Someone can directly go online and do it themselves. If someone calls in, we might offer it and say there's an online form, but probably 9 times out of 10, we'll just say, you know, what's your name? And we'll start typing in the fields that are required. Someone comes to the front desk, same thing. We just sort of take the, put it into the service request because we know it's better than an email for us internally. It's not going to get lost. It's all going to get saved automatically. They're going to get a notification that they have an open task. So we use the form either from staff. I know our lead hand, he even is out and about and he'll put something in there when he's doing other tasks just to get his staff on it. So that's kind of how we make it accessible for all.
I follow up. I just want to say I think that's really nice to hear because I think the residents really appreciate that extended effort, that I don't think they understand necessarily what the effort is being done on the other end of that line, but I appreciate it, and if they did know, I'm sure they would appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, I don't mean to overstress the importance of this system, but I know I've taken calls from councillors and I've typed it in myself and you get feedback. But you can imagine without this, it's a large organization and you're trying to manage, was that a phone call or what did I do with that? It was a piece of paper, it's a Post-it note, it's buried in an email somewhere. So as Michelle has said, and I know Leah's using it as well, it's great for tracking. You can go in and see what's open very quickly. It's not lost on a Post-it note because somebody's given it to you or in your email, which is huge. It's right there. So we use it internally for ourselves. I think it makes us a lot more efficient.
Yes. Leah?
I would just like to add for the other end of that too. When using the service request system, the resident is able to have updates as things happen. So if somebody's walking around town and notices something, they when they add their email to it, they will get a notification from us whether it's in process or it's completed, rather than them having to go back out in town to see that it has been completed. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Great discussion on that because it's really important that, we act upon requests very quickly. And this report really breaks down how all that happens in the background. So thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. I believe the next one is 7.6. Resolution brought to us by Councillor Desrosiers. I'm going to read the resolution.
Long resolution.
Okay. Whereas the Government of Ontario has announced legislation requiring provincial approval for new cycling lanes, and whereas this legislation would compel municipalities to demonstrate that proposed cycling lanes will not negatively impact vehicle traffic, and whereas cycling infrastructure is crucial for environmental transportation, road safety, public health, and provincial oversight in this matter represents an unwarranted intrusion into municipal authority. And whereas the town of Elmer is evolving an active transportation plan to enhance walking and cycling infrastructure, and whereas the Association of Ontario Municipalities, AMO, has strongly criticized this proposed legislation as a significant overreach into municipal jurisdiction, and whereas AMO has stated that none of its 444 members were consulted or shown evidence justifying the province's proposed veto power over new bike lanes. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Elmer strongly opposes the proposed provincial legislation governing bicycle lanes and affirms its support for maintaining municipal jurisdiction over cycling infrastructure decisions, and that the town of Elmer endorses the AMO position that municipalities are better positioned than the Ministry of Transportation to make decisions about local transportation matters based on local knowledge and community input, and that the town of Elmer calls upon the Government of Ontario to withdraw the proposed legislation and respect the established authority of municipalities to make informed decisions about local transportation needs, including the implementation of cycling lanes, and that the town of Elmer reaffirms its commitment to its transportation plan and the continued development of safe, environmentally friendly, efficient cycling infrastructure for the benefit of all residents, and that the town clerk be directed to forward a copy of this resolution to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Transportation, the Member of Provincial Parliament representing constituencies within the Elgin, Middlesex, London region, to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and all municipalities in Ontario, and that the town of Elmer calls upon municipalities across Ontario to adopt similar resolutions in defense of local decision-making authority and sustainable, efficient, and environmentally friendly transportation planning.
Thank you very much. Does anyone want it read again? No. No, it's a very thoughtful resolution, really. Member and seconder, Councillor Roselach, Councillor Rahi. Discussion. Councillor Roselach.
Well, Your Worship, I fully support it. I was on active transportation with the county for 8 years. I fully support it.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. This particular motion or its concept has been widely circulated across Ontario, and using AMO's language of the significant overreach for the province to get involved in local planning issues is just a little much. And the resolution itself makes sense. So we join the rest of the people in Ontario that are supporting the AMO's position.
Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you. And also thank you to Owen, the clerk, for reading that. I apologize for making it so thorough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bill 212 was introduced in response to increasing vehicle congestion. The Minister of Transportation highlighted that, quote, cities in Ontario have seen an explosion of bike lanes, and as a result, too many drivers are now stuck in gridlock. However, rural municipalities like Elmer, along with other similar municipalities in Ontario, do not face those same challenges. While I understand the provincial government's concern applying a one-size-fits-all approach to legislation is counterproductive and fails to account for the unique circumstances in rural areas. Since the issuance of this notice of motion, the provincial government has updated their proposal notice to include further consultation received. There's several comments that are similar to everything that's stated within here. Safety, the governance, like the municipalities kind of, and the intrusion on their decision-making, the environmental impacts, evidence-based decision-making, fiscal responsibility, transportation issues, health issues, economic impact, affordability, and equity. So there's a long list of issues here that other members of Ontario are recognizing, and many, many, many other municipalities as well. Whether one supports cycling infrastructure or not, I believe the majority of taxpayers would agree that the concern regarding the provincial overreach and the introduction of an additional bureaucratic measures are not necessary. These measures ultimately place a financial burden on citizens for an issue that is not relevant to the needs and concerns of real municipalities like Elmer. The province has made significant contributions to municipalities, but this particular initiative does not align with the needs of local communities. It is important for the province to stay in their lane and respect the authority of municipalities in making decisions about local infrastructure. By doing so, municipalities like ours can continue to develop tailored solutions that effectively address the needs of our residents while maintaining cost efficiency. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution? Carried, thank you. 7.7, brought to us by Deputy Mayor Barber.
Whereas on November 29th, 2024, the province of Ontario announced $77 million in financial relief to offset the increased costs of municipal policing services provided by the Ontario Provincial Police in small and rural municipalities. And whereas negotiated contractual costs of the OPP represent a significant factor impacting the costs associated with all municipal police services in Ontario, and where costs of municipal police services in small and rural communities have increased dramatically due to inflationary impacts upon salaries, and such increases are not unique to the OPP, and whereas it is important for the province to provide fair and balanced funding to municipalities in a way that doesn't favor the Ontario Provincial Police over smaller local police services, therefore be it resolved that the Aylmer Council requests the province of Ontario to review and provide funding to support small rural police services in 2025 to a similar level as has been provided by those served by the OPP, and that a copy of this request be sent to Premier Ford and the Solicitor General, Michael Kersner, with copies to all municipalities that have a population of under 50,000 and operate their own police service.
Thank you. Mover and seconder? I think a move by Deputy Barber, and seconder by Councillor Chapman. Speak to that. Deputy Mayor, you want to speak first?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick comment. The resolution is fairly straightforward. Smaller police services are being put in a position where they have to compete with the OPP, and the province has come forward to help out those communities that are serviced by the OPP in a fiscal manner, and this resolution just asks that we be treated fairly as well.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I support this resolution. When the announcement came out, I didn't think it was fair for small municipal police services, but I've had some discussions with the deputy chief, and I know there's been discussions regarding this, and I believe that there's going to be some funding available to non-OPP municipal police services through some grant funding that I'm very confident that our deputy chief will take advantage of. But I do, again, support this resolution just to make sure that we are sending the message that funding for the OPP isn't fair if it's not available for small municipal police services. But hopefully more details to come in the near future.
Do we have any idea what kind of money we're talking about?
Not currently.
Any, Councillor Desrosiers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this. I believe, we're entitled to our fair share as well. I just had a question for perhaps the members here who are part of the Police Service Board. If there's been, have you heard of any, has there been any other similar issues already brought forward? Is it already kind of a discussion that's happening, or are we the first?
Councillor Barber.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe some of the police chiefs have been getting together to have discussions. I don't know offhand if any other municipal government has put a letter forward currently, but I believe there's most likely discussions happening.
Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add?
I just follow that up with, I believe it's at the chief's level that the discussions are happening.
Okay, well, good luck to them because we need it. Good. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution? That's carried. New business and matters of urgency. Reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon.
That council gives 3 readings to and approves. Bylaw 01-25 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the town of Elmer and Badger for the 2024 flushing camera non-emergency procedures for the town of Elmer sanitary and storm sewers. Bylaw 02-25 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the town of Elmer and Autoform London Limited for the 2025 sidewalk program. Bylaw 03-25 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the town of Elmer and Royal Crown Construction for the 2025 pavement management program. Bylaw 04-25 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a agreement between the town of Elmer and PVEX Construction Limited for Elk Street reconstruction. Bylaw 05-25 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held at the regular council meeting on December 4th, 2024. Bylaw 06-25 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 43-24 being a bylaw to adopt the delegation of powers policy. Bylaw 07-25 being a bylaw to authorize the treasurer to utilize the consolidated reserved fund for borrowing if necessary to meet the operating expenditures in 2025. And bylaw 08-25 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor, clerk, and chief administrative officer to execute the transfer payment agreement for the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund in the amount of $4,562,500.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Barber. Any discussion on any of those? Seeing none, all those in favor is carried. Thank you. Inquiries by members? Statements and committee reports by?
Sorry.
Did you have an inquiry? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for going back. Nearly a year ago, Council awarded a $6,000 grant from the Council Initiatives Reserve to Project Lifesaver Elgin. Since then, Council has received limited updates on the project, and I was wondering if Council would be able to request a delegation or a formal report that outlines the project's development, financial status, and projected timeline.
Sorry, did you want to answer that, Councillor?
I can provide an update now if
Okay,
council
fine.
wishes for an
That's
update.
fine. Go ahead.
We were able to raise enough funding to purchase 3 of the units, and then a 4th was donated by another agency. So there's currently going to be 4 units. One is here in Elmer, one is with St. Thomas Police, one will be with Elgin OPP, and the other one is out in Chatham, I believe. Now, the issue with rolling it out Elgin County is just the training portion of it right now, because that's coordinated training between OPP, St. Thomas Police, as well as Elmer Police. So right now, it's in the hands of OPP and each police service to coordinate all that training, because they don't want to roll it out without having all officers trained, because they don't want to say this program's available, but when you call 911, we don't have an officer available to use the equipment. So once there's a significant amount of training where they can guarantee there's going to be an officer on duty that knows how to operate the equipment, then they're going to announce the rollout of this program, make it available to people within Elgin County to start signing up for this program, and then it'll be ready to go. So we have purchased all the equipment. We're just waiting for the training, waiting for an update from if that training's been complete or not.
Just a follow-up question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there an expected timeline? Like, we hoping within this year of 2025, or are we thinking 2026? Do you have a timeline idea?
Mr. Mayor, I was hoping 2024, but now we're into 2025, so I'm planning on following up with OPP to see where they're at, and then hopefully can come back and give a timeline. But right now, it's out of my hands. It's within the police. So.
So no more inquiries. Right. We have statements by councillors. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. I'm pleased to share that MPAC has now provided the final levy assessment information to the town's treasurer. With this data, we can confirm a local levy rate change of 3.19%, or approximately $5.38 per month for the average household. This result reflects our ongoing commitment to affordability and the responsible management of the town's asset to meet the needs of our community. Thank you to the public for your input throughout this process. Your engagement has been invaluable. As a reminder, over 1/3 of the final total levy will go to Elgin County. With the county set to review their budget through a new finance committee, I encourage everyone to stay informed and engaged in their process to help ensure a fair and affordable outcome for our residents.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Barber first, and then Councillor Swayze.
All right, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. It's more of a personal statement. I just want to announce based on my position, so I feel that it's right to share with the public. You're obviously going to see a name change. I don't want people to think that the deputy mayor got demoted to a councillor, so yes, I am going by William Barber now. Again, a personal choice. It's something that I've felt that I've wanted to do. It was my biological father's last name. Obviously, life gets in the way, something that hasn't happened, but in discussions with my family, felt it was the right time to switch and go back to the biological father's last name. Again, for personal reasons, but I wanted to share based on I'm a public figure, and again, don't want any confusion between Deputy Mayor Barber and Councillor Barber, but we spell it differently. So
We got it right.
yeah, I'll leave it at that, unless you want to debate.
I don't have.
All right, thank you very much for that.
I don't
Sir
have.
Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited to announce that 2 exceptional candidates have officially embarked on their journey in the Prodigy program, developed in partnership with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. One of these inspiring candidates is Becky Simons. With deep roots in Elgin County and a background in agriculture, automotive, hospitality, healthcare, and business management, Becky is committed to fostering community connection and trust. As the owner of Mishna IHS, a holistic health and wellness business, and co-owner of 5 Acres Auto Body, she is passionate about supporting others through empathy, understanding, and transparency. The second candidate is a local businesswoman who has opted for a private mentorship. With a strong entrepreneurial spirit, she has successfully built a small business and now seeks to expand her leadership skills and influence within the municipal sector. Although her mentorship will be more personal, she is equally committed to growing as a leader and contributing to the municipal government. The Prodigy program is designed to empower women aspiring to be leaders and decision makers in municipal government. Through hands-on experience and mentorship, the program offers valuable insights into municipal leadership, inspiring women to run for office and equip them with the skills, knowledge, and confidence needed to succeed. The first phase of the program will span 3 months, providing mentorship and opportunities to build connections with the municipal community. For women unable to participate this time, future openings will be available, and interested candidates are encouraged to stay engaged and reach out for more information. I'm incredibly proud to have these 2 women in the Prodigy program and look forward to supporting both candidates as they continue to develop their leadership capabilities. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have no report. Is there any notice of motion? And then we go to the meeting closed to the public. We have a resolution.
That council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 8:12 PM to discuss the following matters: Chief Administrative Officer Report, CAO 03-24, employee-related matters update, and that consideration of these items is closed to the public pursuant to Section 239-2B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual.
Thank you, mover and seconder. Councilor Rai, Deputy Mayor Barber, all those in favor? Is carried. We'll have a brief recess and move into closed session. Resolution coming out of close.
That council rise from the meeting closed to the public at 8:26 PM and reports the following. That council received for information, Chief Administrative Officer Report CIO 3-24 related to an employee-related matter.
Mover and seconder, Council DeSrosier, Council Rahi. All those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn.
That council do now adjourn at 8:26 PM.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Barber, Council DeSrosier. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.